Hi, this is Katie. I'm going to show you a cool type of printmaking called monotype, which is mono means one. So like if you have binoculars, that's two. A monocular is just one. So we're just going to use a plastic Ziploc bag taped onto a piece of paper for this. A lot of the time people use plexiglass or glass from out of a picture frame would work. This is sharp though. So I've just used tape, whatever the kind of tape I had around my house, which is really thin. I would maybe have liked to use regular tape, but I didn't have any. So I taped it to a piece of paper, and I'll show you a couple of the different kinds of prints that I made and how to do them. This is just using acrylic paint, and because it's a monotype, I'm only getting one of each, but you can get something called a ghost print. If you print your plate again, you can add and change little bits of it. Printmaking is making a print or an impression, usually that's got some different kinds of ink on it, on a piece of paper. And so the first part is the plate that you're making, and then the result is the piece of paper. So the print is the result of all of your hard, amazing work. It's really super fun and amazing. So monotyping is one of my favorite types of printmaking, so I'm really excited to show you how to do this. So I just want to let you know that there are about a million different ways of doing this stuff. I'm just going to show you one way. And normally I would use, like I was saying, plexiglass to do this. And normally I would roll the ink on with a brayer. This is a brayer. It's like a special ink roller for this stuff. I like this kind of squishy one. Normally I would use block printing ink, and it's really sticky, and your ink will go on really evenly. And this is oil-based ink, so it won't dry very fast. It's like very slow drying. So you've got a lot of time to work. You've got a lot of what's called open time. But we're going to use acrylic paint because it's round and it also looks really amazing. When you're doing work with color, it's helpful to think about the color wheel. So when you're doing something using colors that are across the color wheel from each other, then those have a lot of contrast. It's called complementary colors, and they stand out a lot. When things are close together on the color wheel, they're called analogous. So we have cool colors over here and warm colors over here. Lots of different cool things to think about. Remember, the primaries are red, blue, and yellow. The secondaries are green, orange, and violet, and tertiary colors are in between these two, so it's mixing a primary and a secondary. So for this project, you just need a plastic Ziploc bag, some paper. This is just printer paper that I'm using. It's not the right paper for most printmaking stuff, so it's going to be a little bit warpy, but I'm going to use it anyways and show you what it looks like. It still looks great. You're going to tape the plastic bag onto one of the pieces of paper in the middle, and you notice I've covered my table in newspaper so I don't get paint on my table because I'm going to be using acrylic paint. Now I'm using acrylic paint that I got from the art supply store, but you can get acrylic paint at the dollar store. And I know that the dollar store in my town is open right now, and I went there yesterday and they had acrylic paint. So I've used a pie pan for a palette and put a bunch of different colors on there. I'm going to mix them together, and then I'm going to paint colors onto this using just a regular paintbrush. This is the paintbrush that I'm using. It's not in the best shape ever. Any kind of paintbrush that you have will work. I'm also going to use a smaller brush here. These have paint on them, but and I'll show you what to do. So I applied my paint to the plastic bag using my brush and as even as a way as I can. Let me see if I can put a little bit more on there and make it more even. And I mixed blue and green together to get this color. A green-blue, or a blue-green, if you will. That is a tertiary color. Okie doke. So that's pretty good, and it still seems like it's pretty wet. Now I'm going to take some of it off using this Q-tip. So maybe I'm going to do a cloud. And I can also like swirl it around. This ends up looking really cool. Though this is acrylic paint, so it dries really fast. So we're going to try to work as fast as we can. More clouds. And I know from my experience, I like the inside of this swirly thing to be kind of empty. So I'm going to try to get as much of the paint out of there as I can. Because if it's empty, it ends up looking a little bit more like a cloud. Let's see, I have a little bit of a rag here, old paper towel, and I can empty that part out. And I can see, though, that my paint is drying. So I want to hurry up, hurry up. I'm going to put my paper down carefully as I can. I'm trying not to let it move around. Once it's touched the ink or paint. And then I'm going to peel this off carefully, carefully, and see what it looks like. Ooh, la la. That looks really nice. In between prints, I have to wipe off this, I want to call it a plate because it's usually called a plate, but I'm going to wipe this bag off as well as I can and get that paint off of there. There we go, it's ready to go. You can apply the paint in a really painterly way, or trying to keep those brush strokes and keep some different colors as well if you want to. We're just trying to make sure that this paint doesn't dry too much before we get the paper on top of it. And so then the next step would be to put the paper, try to line it up as well as you can, the paper on there, and try not to have it move around while you're pressing it down. Okay, let's see what it looks like. Ooh, I like that. This paint did dry a lot while I was doing that. And there's some interesting stuff going on in here, but it does look a lot like paint. Here's a gradient that goes from orange to yellow. So it's a tertiary color, orange plus yellow, yellow-orange. But I'm also doing a gradient, which is super fun. People sometimes call this ombre, or have in the past few years. It's also, in printmaking, sometimes called a split fountain. There are lots of different terms and techniques that you can use. We're trying different things, right? I'm going to draw into this paint or ink to try to get different cool lines. There are so many different things you can use to get lines. So there's the tip of a pen. Paper clip is cool. You can get the end of a paper clip to do some interesting things. Q-tip. It's kind of smudgy. Try this piece of cardboard. Ooh, interesting. Just using the side of it. Okay, let's print that and see what it looks like. That looks cool. I made this color by adding purple and white together. So I'm going to get this on my bag as fast as I can so it doesn't dry. Just trying to work fast. Sometimes quick decisions are really exciting decisions when we're talking about art, because you take some risks when you're moving fast that you might not take when you're slow. So again, I'm going to take a bunch of this stuff off here. working fast. This time I'm gonna add a little bit of paint to the middle. I feel like I see some of that water that I added to the paint earlier separating. That's gonna look really weird, but that's okay. Maybe it won't. We just have to print it and see. All right, so I do have a lot of colors there, and I'm ready to go. So I'm gonna, as carefully as I can, put this down. Try not to let it move. And try to transfer some of that paint over. And that looks really nice. Here's another print that's sort of like the last one. I added a bunch of paint to the surface and took some of it off with Q-tips, and then I drew and painted this flower back in. This is one that has too much water in the ink, and I used Q-tips to take this paint off, but the paint was too wet. So when I pressed it, the lines disappeared. That's maybe helpful for you to see. And then after I printed this, I still had ink on my plate, like you saw before, and I took a pen cap and I drew into the ink, and then I got a ghost print. So I took this and I scratched some more lines into the paint and then printed it again, and that's called a ghost print. It's a lighter version of the other last print after you've taken the ink off.